outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, CEO of the Crone Law Firm, and I have with me a great guest. I'm really looking forward to this show. Mason George, who's the president of national accounts at IMC Companies. They're a logistics firm, and they're right in the middle of all of the supply chain challenges, and they're overcoming lots of them. And I don't know, this isn't a spoiler alert because I haven't asked him, but I'm hopeful that things are getting better, not worse. So Mason, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Can you just tell our viewers just a little bit about IMC, what you guys do and how you make the world a better place?
Well, it's a great question. And I tell you, we're in business to serve the marine drayage community. We view ourselves as a marine transportation and technology company, which means we're bringing assets to the table to address needs of our customers and also fulfill drivers' jobs, in doing so. But then we're also providing a good level of tech to help solve some of these problems that in our opinion, have just gotten completely out of whack.
Who is your, what kind of company is your ideal kind of company? Who do y'all enjoy most doing the business with?
Well, yeah, we work with almost any beneficial cargo owner who brings imported goods into the United States in a full container load, right? So a lot of jargon there to say if you have purchased something or manufactured something overseas and put it into a container, we would like to be your vendor and for you to be a customer with us.
All right. Well, it sounds like you're the guy to ask. So I guess my first question is, and this is really a layman's question, is, around Christmas time, I heard about that big parking lot outside our western ports full of cargo ships.
Oh, yeah.
Is that still going on? What's going on with stuff coming from the east?
Well, the optics look a little better because they started making the vessels park further out offshore, right? So, but the problem's still here today. There's still quite a few. We were bobbing up and down around 100 or so total queued up. And at this point, we're unfortunately just kind of estimating some of that because they're not grouped together in the way that they were doing it right off the shore. So right now, the estimates are still roughly the same and hasn't gotten a lot better. The fluidity of cargo is just, still unfortunately working at maybe a 16 to 18 day backlog is probably what I would say before the boat actually gets to the dock to be worked.
And when you say to the dock, you mean to not just in that queue, but to the actual shore to be unloaded.
That's right, to the terminal, because if you see this, and it's great Google Maps these days, you can actually get a good overview of all this stuff. But there are these big cranes that work the vessels to unload the cargo, so it's got to get parked on that concrete pad or near the concrete pad so the cranes can work the vessel.
Yeah, I saw the 18 movie.
Yeah, that's all you need. That's exactly what we do every day.
So what, again, for folks that just watch the news and don't really have the professional insight you do, what are the things that are contributing to this situation?
I would say that it's just a pure lack of infrastructure, right? So if you're going on 240 West and there's 4 lanes of traffic and that can handle, and I'm estimating, I'm not an engineer by any means, but if that 4 lanes of traffic going west can handle, 1,000 cars within a 10-minute time frame, all going at 55 miles an hour. The problem that we have is we have about 1,100 to 1,200 cars into the system. And what happens there is it just, as more cars come in, it slows the whole system down. And unfortunately, what we're finding out today is that as even more cars are coming in, it's every car that's incrementally added, it's exponentially affecting the times in the supply chain, right? So when we get to that, 1,100 containers, that 1101 hurts a lot worse than the one before that because we're having to go vertical instead of horizontal with how we're storing these containers, which holds up a whole new host of issues with how we get that product out of the port in a reasonable manner.
Is there any opportunity for Memphis, our port, our logistics industry here in town in this backlog?
It's a great question. I would say no. Unfortunate, right? I'm a big cheerleader for Memphis. I think there's a lot coming here. Walmart actually just announced that they're bringing in a huge DC to the Olive Branch area, which I think is awesome. There's 250 jobs. There's a lot of really great things happening in Memphis. So from a warehouse DC perspective, things are looking up. In terms of Memphis being able to handle more of the volume, we have an advantage, right? We have 5 Class 1 railroads in Memphis, and they are all from all over the country, East Coast, West Coast, even Southern and Northern points of entry into Memphis, which is it's a great advantage for Memphis. The only other city that's truly like it is probably Chicago. And the issue with that is, unfortunately, the water ports, so like a Los Angeles and a Seattle, Newark, and Savannah, they're all backed up such to a level that it's hard to get the cargo into the inland ports, right? And that's been affecting Memphis. Memphis had its fair share of congestion as well back in the August, September months, something like we've never seen before. But unfortunately, there's not a lot more Memphis can do without being closer to the water.
So what's the short and long-term solution to get the supply chain humming again, close to what we're used to?
So I would say in the short term, I really like what we're doing together with our Smart Stack solution. If you imagine, these containers are made to stack on top of each other. So you might have containers 6 and 7 high at the Port of Los Angeles in Long Beach. And if my driver is coming in for a specific unit, Murphy's Law is going to say, okay, I got to move 5 to 6 containers to get to your one. And the unfortunate thing is we haven't been sophisticated enough as a just network in trucking in general. The guy behind him, whether it's my truck or not, might be asking for the container that was on the very top before my guy got to his container. So we've just reburied the next issue or next container. And what we want to do is leverage Smart Stacks, which essentially say we're going to take a whole block of containers and I want the first one off the stack every time. And what's happening with that is that driver turn times are cut dramatically. The port efficiency goes through the roof because instead of having, one productive move for every 8 to 9 moves that aren't productive, everything is productive, right? So you're saving on lift power and labor, and you're adding a lot of capacity to the table with our drivers being able to zoom in and zoom out. Instead of having an average 2, 3, 4 hour wait time on bad days, you're looking at having an average wait time of maybe 30, 45 minutes round trip, which is just game changing. And it's essentially doing in the short term, I think, as a system and a network, we've got to learn how to use what we've got now to attack this problem. We can't say, oh, this is going to be worked out in 3 or 4 years. That's too far. I mean, we got to figure out how to do something different today. In the long term, there's a lot of theories out there about what we can do better. Port of Savannah, commend them for their investment into their infrastructure to try to make things more fluid at their rails and their port. They're adding land. But when you look at something like Los Angeles, you can't do that. LA has been landlocked for 20 years. There's only so much you can do back and forth in that facility, which I think is a huge issue for us long term and how we try to tackle this stuff. Any incremental growth is just going to continue to add to the problem.
And it's not like they're making deep water ports.
That's right. We need more. Let me tell you, if we can figure out how to do that, that would be fantastic. But that's a very long and arduous process, and it's expensive, and it's just not going to fix us in the short term. People are if our spending habits keep doing the same thing that they have been doing over the last year or so, we're going to run into some major issues come next Christmas. Same thing we had right now.
is the, and this is probably a really basic question, but is this a perfect storm between demand spiking and the fact that you had so much pent up deliverables before the pandemic that never got shipped? Are things just coming over in a big, mass, if you think of an elephant and an anaconda? Or,
Yeah.
And is that slowing down in?
Well, so on a macro level, I think you have to look at what really changed. I mean, we took a lot of money off of the service and hospitality table and put it into basically imported goods and products, right? And what little manufacturing was left in the United States was in really bad shape when COVID hit because they had less labor to even work that, right? So a lot of that got outsourced overseas. The factories are still very much backed up over there. So I think what we saw in 2020 obviously was this major shift where the millennials and Generation Zers spent most of their disposable income on entertainment and hobbies and less on their house and goods inside their home or what they're going to use out there on the street for whatever reasoning that is. And they shifted it all that over towards that, which did create a big kind of slug effect. But the problem with that is that the slug effect just continued. People kept buying more things. We had more government stimuluses. We had guaranteed payroll. And then leading up to that, by the way, we had the highest saving rates in the entire history of the country. So those were all good things for, the consumer industry, which is what we're seeing right now. So to your point, we would have to see some considerable consumer behavior patterns change, whether that's through a deep recession or other things that would contribute to how we spend in the United States for this thing to really slow down. Because, at some level, people are still projecting 2022 to have somewhat of a nominal GDP growth, right? And that's going to affect all the consumer goods that we have here too. So long story short, I think this is here to stay for the next year and a half or so from what we're hearing from our customers. Obviously, that's really subject to change based on the dime that we live in. But, I think we're in it for the long haul.
So how has your company, IMC, approached these problems? And without giving away any trade secrets,
Sure.
What are the kinds of things you guys do to help your customers, beat this system as best you can?
Yeah, it's that's a huge challenge for us because we're in the service industry. We're basically in the business to keeping customers happy, right? And they're happy when they get their stuff when they want their stuff. And what we've been doing, obviously, drivers are just the precious resource that we're trying to use every day. And with our smart stacks, we're basically saying, hey, we were doing 2 or 3 turns per day. Now we're doing 6 and 7 turns. And that's a huge difference because we're able to do more with less drivers, which is a good thing for our drivers. We pay everybody on production pay. So the more turns they get, the more money they make. And honestly, the more turns they make, the happier they are because they don't like waiting in line in traffic jams. They're drivers to be productive and fulfill that same need for the customer. They want to serve those guys. So the smart stack has been good. We've been putting together trains on the West Coast and railing them inland for our key clients, which has been really huge for us too, because that's helped work with some of the backlog and log jams inland in places like Chicago and Memphis. And we're just going to continue doing that and be resilient to our customers and figure out the best way to get this product to them.
Well, it's fascinating. I always like talking logistics and supply chain because, if someone like me figures, well, all you got to do is order something and it gets here. But there's so much logistics that it's almost like going to war, trying to get something from a manufacturer overseas to my front door. What would most of my listeners, what do you think they'd be surprised to know about supply chain technology these days?
Oh, wow. I would say that, the historical figure, I think that first brought used to supply chain to where it was kind of a table talking subject would be Alexander the Great, right? I mean, historically, he was able to weaponize his supply chain in a way that gave him a competitive advantage at the battlefield because his army was well equipped, well fed, and as a result was well in shape to fight good battles and for him, right? When other guys were starving because they didn't have the right supply chain practices in place to execute what they were trying to do as a mission. So it's an ancient practice, right? And in merchant shipping, I mean, that was one of the first things that really, the explorers of, the 15, 16, 17, 1800s were doing was a lot of merchant shipping, was trading goods between countries, and supply chain really originated that. And in the Mid-South, I mean, think about all the cotton that we made that we shipped over to Europe to be sewn, to be brought back here to make goods for us. Today, obviously, it's continued to evolve. The United States is not a major producer. We're a major importer. We still export crops like we always have, but we don't have a lot of manufacturing here. And I would say, I think most people would be shocked at the lack of sophistication with supply chain. I mean, I think a lot of customers still operate on spreadsheets and they don't have a great transportation management system. There's a lot of work to be done with trying to standardize this stuff. There's a whole hope in application for blockchain in our space because there's a lot of information that gets lost in contracts that doesn't get relayed to all the necessary parties. There's not a universal source of truth in terms of tracking. There's a lot of runway for being able to produce quality information. Even when you ask, you can ask the Port of Long Beach in Los Angeles, hey, how many containers did you import into 2022? And it's 3 weeks into, 2021. It's 3 weeks into 2022, and they don't know. We're still waiting on that data. It's like, well, that's how is your stuff so late when it comes to that? Right. I mean, they just came out with it 3 days ago. So it's impressive on how much work there is to be done, but it's made up of a lot of different hands in the pot, and getting everybody on the same page is where this thing needs to go.
We have a lot of entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs that watch this podcast. Are there any entrepreneurial opportunities in this current situation for folks?
Oh, well, I always looked at these challenges as opportunities, right? And trucking has always been, in my opinion, the ultimate entrepreneur's game. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to get started. There's a lot of blood and sweat and tears that you can put into your business. So I honestly welcome anybody who would want to jump in and be able to contribute. It doesn't cost much. And there's some things that niche players can do on a very small scale, very successfully, and make a good amount of money doing so, right? And make a difference in the industry. There's things that bigger companies can't do that small companies can, and vice versa. Small companies can't do some of the stuff that big companies do. So being able to be resilient and work hard, and if that's you, supply chain will find a fit. There's a million different opportunities from a tech perspective to an innovation perspective, and we need new talent. I will tell you that to come look at this with a new lens.
Well, it does sound like we're at a pivot point, if you will, in your industry. And anytime you're talking about a pivot point, there's lots of opportunity for lots of people. Innovation is going to, it sounds like what you're telling me is innovation is going to be the key to overcoming this.
I think so. And the industry is going to look a lot different in the next 5 to 10 years. There's no doubt. There's a lot coming in with autonomous trucking. There's other ideas coming in with autonomous rail. There's other things with the regulations with electronic vehicles that are getting put in place all over the country. This place is going to look a lot different in the next 5 to 10 years, and we need people to continue to bring good solutions to the table for this.
All right, Mason. Well, thank you so much for enlightening us on supply chain. I think it's you obviously know what you're doing. I know that IMC knows what they're doing, and thank you for all that you do to help me get my Fresca in the morning and my my new shirt that I ordered, and everything in between. It really is important. It is very, very important what you do, and the fact that y'all do it so well is a credit to you, and it's great for the city of Memphis.
Well, thank you for having me. I had a great time, and thank you for doing this. This is fantastic. Good to be here with you. My
pleasure. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of Ask Alan. If you enjoyed this, and how could you not enjoy it? It was a terrific discussion about our modern supply chain issues. Share this, email it to folks, get the word out, comment on it. Let me know what you thought. If you have a idea for a future show, let me know that. Mason George is going to go deliver your package, and I'm going to go get some justice. Thank you all very much.